Joining us in the studio today, I suppose, two representatives of the latest collaboration and how to deal with properties that, if you take one quick look at them, might suggest they've had their day, but they're getting renewed life. Talk about the latest example of that now. Christine Schauer, of course, the Calhoun County Treasurer, and Jeremy Andrews is here as well, Executive Director at Sprout Urban Farms. Good morning to the two of you.
Good morning, Richard.
Thank you for being here today. You know, it is interesting because we've talked about this a few times now, Christine, where you've come up with some ideas for, I guess, what was either a blighted property or was on the way to it. And the ideas are new and exciting. One of them was turning one of them into a fire training house, which is obviously useful.
Yes.
And then the other is the Fire Hub, which is Firekeepers Casino, a food bank collaboration with an old firehouse, which is kind of cool. Now we have a new idea. What is this one now?
Well, these community collaborations are great. The land bank is really proud when we're able to collaborate with community groups. We can't really take credit for this idea, but this property that Sprout Urban Farms has been occupying for a few years here was formerly blighted buildings, an old temple that was demolished, and it's actually several lots. And that demolition happened back in 2011.
Okay.
And Jeremy approached the land bank about utilizing this property for an urban farm.
Had your eye on that, did you?
Yeah, we drive around neighborhoods a lot looking for nice spots.
That's okay. What is Sprout Urban Farms, by the way?
Well, that's a good question. Sprout Urban Farms is... it's a food hub, first and foremost. What that means is we buy and sell produce from about 40 different local farms within about 100 miles of here. So we buy produce and sell it to Bronson Battle Creek, some local schools like Penfield, Marshall, and Lakeview so far, and area restaurants. In addition, we aggregate produce for the Sprout Box, which is a multi-farm CSA that's customizable online. A CSA is a community-supported agriculture. What that means stands for community-supported agriculture. What that means is that somebody buys a membership to multiple farms, and they get to pick which vegetables they want in their box, and we deliver it. Either we have it available at the farmers markets or our farm stand at 245 North Kendall, the property we're referencing today, or we will deliver it to your workplace if you have 5 or more people in your workplace. No delivery fee.
Wow.
Or we'll deliver it to your home for a delivery fee, and the Sprout Box is $25 a week. So that's the major part of our work, but that has evolved from a network of community gardens that started in 2009. We taught workshops together, found resources together, helped put vacant land in neighborhoods back to productive use, one lot at a time. There's about 35 community gardens in Battle Creek currently operating at any number of levels. We do not own any of them. We just help get them started, offer technical assistance if they'd like, offer some resources. We have a tool library where we've loaned out different tools for community gardens, and a seed bank, which are leftover seeds from the year before. When we first got the land bank property in 2012, it was our farm, and we started growing food on that farm, and that became one of the 40 farms in our food hub. So we supply our food hub with our own farm, but this year we just created our incubator farm. So now there are 2 19-year-olds that are starting their own business, Sunlight Gardens, on Bright Star Farm. And so we've helped spur one business, and we hope to spur many more food businesses, not just farms, but helping food entrepreneurs get started in the area.
My brain is swimming right now with all of this.
Yeah,
we'll take
a lot of stuff.
We'll take a break and come back and talk more about this. About 100 questions. Let's see if we can all get them in before the bottom of the hour. We're learning about urban farming of sorts, and that by way of maybe something you heard about, saw, read, a plot of land at 245 Kendall in Battle Creek that has some farming going on it. And Christine Schauer is here to talk with us about that, Calhoun County Treasurer, and Jeremy Andrews with Sprout Urban Farms. We should point out, I suppose, that the property that was at the center of this story is actually one that has had some farming happening on it already, right, Christine?
Right, that's right. As Jeremy pointed out, they began leasing this property from the land bank in 2012 and have been developing and being great stewards of the property. And by so doing, this property otherwise would have been sitting there, taxpayer dollars paying for mowing and maintenance. And so we've been very, very happy with our partnership with Sprout, and this culminated last week with the sale of that property to Sprout Urban Farms, which in turn gives them more control and the ability to go forward with whatever new plans they prefer.
Sure. What kind of a tall order is this, Jeremy, to buy a piece of land to proceed with your plans? I mean, do you have a bucket of money you just go around buying properties?
No, in fact, we don't have a bucket of money. We have very little. This has been a creative partnership, and so we leased from the land bank for 4 years, and our purchase really includes all of the costs of closing and title search and title insurance and all of that. It's not I don't know the exact number offhand, but it's not it's not breaking the bank for us. It's money that we made selling produce.
Sure.
So it's no grant funding purchasing properties. This is all from money that we put back into pockets of some of it put back in the pockets of local farmers to help their household wealth, and some came to us in form of profits that pays for us to keep doing business. And we used it to secure the property so that, like she said, we can start doing other things and feel more secure in it. We can develop it and maybe build on it, but also we just thought it was time for us to take the next step so that they don't have to worry about our property and they can worry about all the other ones that are vacant.
Right. And there are plenty of those, I'm sure.
And the price was right. This was another property we sold for $1. To this nonprofit group, and are very proud to have been able to do that. We also see this as a kind of anchor in that neighborhood, encouraging people to keep up their properties or improve their properties. There's been a lot of other investment in that neighborhood with grant dollars for demolitions and some rehabs. So it's just a win-win for that neighborhood.
And I presume that these kinds of farms suddenly that are in neighborhoods when this starts, at least, if not beyond that, attract attention from the neighbors, don't they?
They do. So I guess, and they attract all kinds of attention.
Yeah.
When we first came, we did a lot of door knocking and talking to people. And since then, I remember the first week we were there even, people would drive by and honk every day. They would stop and bring us water and Gatorade.
Oh, nice.
We had people in the neighborhood handing us money out of their car.
Oh.
Thank you for, maybe it was a few bucks. It wasn't anything, that, bought the property, but it was it was enough to buy somebody lunch that day that helped out. But it meant a lot. So there's been a lot of neighborhood support. We have volunteers that come from the neighborhood every day sometimes to help weed, and maybe they take some produce. It's not a community garden. It's more, it's an urban farm, and now it's an urban farm that's really owned. The farming operation is owned by 2 other people, so we sometimes, connect them to some volunteers so they get some help out as they're starting. And there's some neighbors that, I've heard some, negative opinions of urban farming too, and so those can be brought up. They think that maybe it's going to smell more, or it's going to attract more rodents. And people are certainly welcome to their opinions. It doesn't smell. It smells less probably because there was in the vacant building mold and just it was a pretty funky building. We named our farm after that church. There are probably less rodents or less animals. It was a deer haven, so when we bought it, there were probably 15 or 20 deer sleeping in that property. So they're not coming there anymore. We know, but there's some groundhogs that probably actually come to our place instead of your house, because
Better pickings.
Yeah, that's right.
So we get groundhogs a lot, but that's about it. We compost, and no one would know that we compost from a bunch of local coffee places. So we put nutrients back into the ground from coffee grounds, and vegetables from the hospital, sometimes from the food bank, and from our own operations as they go bad. And we donate. If we donate to the Haven, we donate to other food programs. So there's lots of good, and we welcome conversation with any negative opinions to help fix that perception.
We're talking about 245 Kendall, among other properties where urban farming is happening, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. Christine Schauer is here, Calhoun County Treasurer, and Jeremy Andrews, Executive Director with Sprout Urban Farms. You may have heard the story, 245 Kendall, which has been a leased space for urban farming, now owned by the Sprout Urban Farms. And this begs the question, I guess, Christine, because we've heard a lot about the idea of urban farming, perhaps when talking about Detroit, for example, where there's a lot of former residential space that they have to deal with. Is this an option that gets discussed readily at a level like this, where counties and municipalities are dealing with properties that are no longer inhabited?
Yeah, in the land bank world, this is not totally unique. You mentioned Detroit, where some of this is going on. There's also these community farms that maybe are on just one or a corner lot or a lot here or there, where a community actually adopts the lot from a land bank. We do have some instances of that here. And then the members of the community are actually growing some of their own vegetables and helping in the garden, vegetables, flowers.
Sure.
And stewarding that property. So we're always looking for creative reuse of these lots. We've had to do a lot of demolition of blighted properties, and it does leave an empty lot. So we've also talked about not only the gardens, but our side lot program, where a neighboring property can buy and maintain, annex to their house or whatever, the side lot. And so urban farming is not something unique to Battle Creek, but we're very, very happy to have it here, and with Sprout leading these kinds of efforts and being an expert in the field.
When you do this, Jeremy, you have suddenly there's a garden in a neighborhood. What are the expectations of the neighbors? Do they say, "Oh, we can sell all the vegetables and flowers and things and cut up the proceeds"? I mean, is there a value that they perceive in that somehow?
Well, that's a good question. I think if you're speaking in terms of community gardens, I think for the most part, our community gardens are all autonomous entities, but I would say that most of them are growing for themselves and for their families, and they figure out rules amongst themselves. Are we going to grow a bunch and then split it up, or are we going to do individual plots? There are some that are just growing strictly for donations to church programs and soup kitchens and such. And then there are others that have talked about the economic possibilities for their family because they grew enough and there's still more left. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because currently we're working with the city of Battle Creek on an urban agriculture ordinance. It's been in the planning process for about a year now, and still is in conversation with citizen input happening. A large part of that is around the commercial aspect in residential zoning. In residential zoning, so
Sure.
Currently you can't even have a lemonade stand at the end of your driveway in a neighborhood because that's commercial activity. What we want to see is an ability for a community garden to maybe come together and put out a little cart on wheels with vegetables to make some money in their neighborhood. It's not something that's going to attract a Walmart-sized parking lot out on Wabash Street or anything. It's just something that maybe somebody we're not necessarily economically rich in Battle Creek, and it's good to come up with other options and other ways for people to take care of themselves, take care of their own family. And so it's largely the urban agriculture ordinance is around that. And then there's some other pieces around urban chickens on certain size lots.
Right.
And that's getting more attention from people for sure, because a lot of misconceptions around chickens, especially hens versus roosters and those sort of things. What we're really advocating for is the right amount amount of animal per size lot, and not the noisy ones, and mostly that people would already have to follow rules that already exist, like noise and smell and stuff. So it's not really, adding any more. It's just adding more opportunity for people, and that's what we're really looking to do in this community, is create opportunity.
Well, it is interesting to talk about all of this and talk about yet another innovative use for property that is evolving into a new life. So we appreciate the chance to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you for having us on, Richard.